One of the things I talk about for a lot of people here who are discovering this content, I think you need to fight to find yourself. Here's what I mean by that. I have no idea, Henrik. It wasn't like, that was just DNA, right? Like I was 7. It's not like.
Was it you want to make money early?
It wasn't, you know what's funny, and this is a huge advantage this is why I think entrepreneurship's confusing right now. I think in the last 10, 15 years, entrepreneurs have become more relevant. Fame. This is crazy to me. I was 31 years old before I made a video. I grew up I was an adult before it even it didn't even cross my mind that humans would know who I was. I thought people would know me in the wine business, in the business world, sure, because I was in that. But the thought that on the walk here somebody might say hi or a selfie, businessmen weren't famous. That wasn't a thing. No, to me it was, and what I'm scared about is people are now chasing the money. People want to be entrepreneurs for the fame and the money. The problem is entrepreneurship's hard. It's really hard, and it's extremely lonely. You know, you're at the top of an organization and everything's your fault, and everything's your responsibility. It's like being a parent. It's all fun and games until you're a parent. You know, like everybody goes through this. They have all sorts of judgment of their parents until they become a parent. And they're like, wait a minute. And so, anyway, no, going back, Henrik, I just have no idea. It was who I was. In the same way that I look at athletes, I look at musicians, I look at artists, teachers, stay-at-home parents. Like my mom was destined, genuinely, to be a stay-at-home mother and like raise a family, and like I'm the great beneficiary of that. I think a lot of people compromise their greatest skills because they don't think they can make money in it. I think about all my friends who were remarkable at video games when it wasn't clear that video games were a business. And so they thought they had to get a real job. But had they stayed and played video games, they might be the Tony Hawk of video games today, the way it played out. Sure. And so I think people need to chase passion and then live within the means of what that financial outcome is.
And I think sometimes it's like chasing passion doesn't mean you have a specific thing in mind, but it's a way of doing. And what I mean by that is like it could be wanting to be helpful.
Yeah.
Or wanting to solve problems.
Yeah.
And figuring out like that's my.
And to your point, I love solving problems. So that can mean, I love what you're saying. So that can mean, oh, you're destined to become an engineer.
Exactly.
Because engineers solve problems. Oh, you're destined to be a therapist. Because that solves problems. Oh, you're destined to be a guidance counselor in a middle school. Oh, you're destined to be an entrepreneur because you're going to create a product that solves a problem. I like that. I agree with that. I think what that does for people is it gives them a little bit more room to figure themselves out. 14 to 17, high school. Flirted, didn't understand it. The only thing I knew was, this is weird. I'm playing high school different than the other 250 kids in my class. I feel no peer pressure. I could give 2 shits if I'm picked on or don't have social status. I had a very outgoing and like kind of am who I am personality, so I was very liked, but I did something in the 90s in New Jersey. If you weren't picking on kids, you weren't popular. And I wasn't willing to compromise. I wasn't willing to go to the next tier of popularity because I wasn't willing to shit on kids in my class. And I would choose going to a baseball card show and selling on a Friday night instead of going to a cool party that I was invited to that I should have felt cool about. I was only 20% of the class invited. I would work at my dad's liquor store on the weekends instead of hanging out. I was so different. And I sensed it, but it was very hazy. About 20 years later, when I was 35, I'd been putting out content for long enough, telling people, starting in 2006, 7, 8, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, do this, do this, do this. This is how you get more followers. This is how you get more people to buy from you on email. And I was putting out all this content, and I started realizing a lot of people were not doing it. And I started getting fascinated on why. And that's when I had the early epiphanies of like, oh, the whole world is built on self-esteem. You're either confident or you're insecure. And then a million other variables of how that happens. And my content changed. The first 5 years of me being a businessman content, it's very tactical. Set up this website, post at this time, And then you can start to see after I started to get like, and I started reading the DMs and they're like, hey, but if I post, what if I don't like the way I look? And I'm like, whoa, right. Oh, like my husband doesn't think I should be doing this. I'm like, oh, right. Like, you know, and by the way, my childhood was not all roses. My mom was incredibly optimistic. My dad was incredibly pessimistic. You know, most of my relatives, including my mom's side, were pessimistic. They grew up in the Soviet Union. They always thought there was a conspiracy. You know, I get it. At the time, I didn't get it. I would judge my uncles, my grandmom. Like, I was like, why is everyone so negative? Like, now I'm like, wait a minute.
Right.
They lived in the worst place in the world at the time.
Well, mindset is a tool. We don't use mindset as a tool to deal with the great times. Like, whoever thinks, like, I gotta spend more time on my mindset when everything's going great. Mindset is a tool.
Well, real quick though,
Yeah.
real quick, I apologize. This is where gratitude and appreciation is the tool.
Right.
So like, think about how I started the opening of this podcast. It's on an everyday basis. This morning, while brushing my teeth and listening to Boomer talk about the Jets and the Rangers, I was like, man, good, all right, thank you. Yeah, it's a good, like real talk. And by the way, it's practice. One thing by the way, step 3, first I didn't understand, like I just said, then I started understanding. Now I'm going into a third phase where I'm trying to tell people, friends first, even like Dust, like I'm starting to realize, oh shit, I practice. I say to myself, you are lucky. This is a great day. Like, you want to hear something insane that I would tell everyone, especially people of any level of status? I believe the single reason I am joyous is because I have no attachment to my professional and financial success. I feel like 0 of my identity is the Garyvee or the businessman. It is completely and utterly baked into, my self-worth is baked into how I feel people feel about me based on how much they know me. Yesterday, what you two thought about me was very low on a mattering to me. It is now grown after this hour, but Dustin, it matters a ton to me. He's been around me a ton. My sister, more so. It's just a pecking order. So I think for a lot of people, if somebody did something at a Jets game this weekend, they got introduced to me and they told me their full profession in the intro. Hey, John Thompson, doctor at this, like, and I'm like, you know, I take note, I think about that. I'm like, I see, that's his validation.
Sure.
And I think about it, like, you know, listen, we can't go through this podcast without talking about how handsome Henrik is, right? Like,
It's actually written into the.
Is it?
Yeah.
But it's funny, I'm gonna use it as something I talk a lot about. I worry that parents give validation to their children around grades, because it's a very fake system. I worry that parents give validation on looks. You know, if a child is told, and there's a small percentage of people like Henrik who are just born attractive, and it's going to be a constant theme in their life, and especially for young women. You know, you think about that, you know, then all of a sudden in your 30s and your 40s and your 50s and your 60s, I am curious about how people validate themselves. Is it school? Is it money? Is it zip code? Is it the car you drive? Is it how you look? Is it what you accomplish on the ice? Is it accomplishing followers, like? I mean, it's a very big deal, and I think about it a lot. In my office, I talk about to employees, I just recently had some young man work for me, and he was doing a certain role, and I said, hey, you're an extrovert. You're not cross your T's and dot your I's. You're doing a cross your T's and dot your I's job now. You need to get out of this. And I said, look, my job as CEO is to put players in a position to succeed. Very hardcore sports analogy. The most fascinating thing I watch in sports is the variable of a head coach. Because it's, you know, especially within a season. Anytime a team in any of the 4 major sports fires a manager or head coach in season, even if I don't follow that team, I kind of keep a little eye on the next month of what that team does, because it speaks to the actual variable of that person, right? It is the same players. It's not the next season. You know, I think, you know, and you know this, Henrik, I think fans are naive. A team seemingly is the same as last year, but many things happen. Everybody's a year older, anything can happen. And by the way, one player, let alone 3 different players, changes everything, potentially. Especially if one of those 3 players is special. Or the reverse. You get rid of one cancerous, cynical player, changes the entire locker room. So in-season coaches coming is like one of my biggest fascinations. As a CEO, I stay up at night thinking about, is Dustin doing the single best thing he could be doing in this organization, both for the organization and for Dustin, right? Because if you do it for Dustin, then it will happen for the organization.
Do you view your companies from a sports standpoint almost? Do you see yourself as a coach?
Yes.
Or, more as a coach than as a boss?
100%. I see myself, first of all, I think that almost every CEO and boss has it wrong. It was funny when you even said the word of what happened in my stomach. It didn't feel good because I think the world has defined boss as person that tells you what to do, person that's keeping you accountable. I feel that I work for every employee and I really show up that way. And I feel like I have to dictate the strategy, right? So yes, I do think more of myself as a coach, as a parent, as a guidance counselor, as an older brother, feels very appropriate. I am the oldest in my family, and I was in a family where it was an immigrant family. So my mom, from the time I was 6, I remember my mom saying, like, you have to take care of your sister. You're out there at 8 years old. You're 8. You're a child. You're a baby. 8. And I'm keeping an eye on her, and I gotta fight if somebody makes fun of her, like real shit. And so, yes, I do view it that way. I think a real entrepreneur fails 98% of the time. I can't even, I could spend the rest of my life sitting in front of y'all telling you everything that hasn't worked out the way I thought it is, because it happens every day. To your point, the real shit is, which one are you doing that's consistently a problem? The glaring, most obvious one. Because early on, I figured out, I got very lucky that the internet came along at the time it did, and I was where I was at. I would have been a person that would have guessed about the next big thing in my early 20s, because I hadn't calibrated yet how long it takes for innovation to happen. Notice how I said the metaverse is 14 years away? At 22, when I launched WineLibrary.com in 97, I remember vividly saying to my friends in college, because I wasn't out of college yet, I'm like, by the year 2000, everybody's gonna buy wine on the internet. I didn't realize, because I'm such a yes person, I didn't realize all of you are no people. So I knew that I needed to learn timing. But I learned that one pretty quick. I made that timing mistake wrong a couple of times. I remember I bought an ad on luxury.com. I'll try to get louder. I bought an ad on luxury.com in 1998 for like 10,000 bucks, a lot of money. And I was like, this is gonna be huge. Like, I couldn't wait. Christmas morning stuff. I barely slept the night before because I knew it was going live 9 a.m. Pacific time, because they were a Silicon Valley company, so noon Jersey time. Had my morning, and I sat in front of the computer at 12:05 to see the orders coming in, and nothing happened. I'm like, okay, 9 a.m. About an hour in, I'm like, nothing. Another hour, nothing. I called them, I'm like, hey, do you have, because I could see they had the right link. I'm like, it was really early internet. Like, we were all figuring it out. And I realized I bought an ad on what seemed to be a big site, but didn't have it, I had to learn. So I learned being too early, but the one that I'm still working on, and it's funny based on the advice I just gave to Michael, because it's really grounded in something real to me. The mistake I made consistently for 20 plus years was not delivering negative news to people in my company when they were underperforming, because I didn't want to, I viewed it as scaring them. The lowest point of my professional career was the day I had the aha when I was 42, 43 years old, that I had spent 20 years trying to make everyone feel safe, but that I'd built enough of a reputation that people knew they didn't fully know where they stood with me, because I could see OJ on Friday and be like, OJ, have the best weekend, brother, love you, keep up the good work. And on Monday, call him in and be like, we're gonna have to let you go. And he's like, yo, what the fuck? What happened on Friday? Have the best weekend. And what I did from 22 to 44 was I would blame OJ in that scenario. I'm like, bro, he should have known, like he knows he's been, and because I would sit on it forever. I'm like, he's been underperforming for 2 years. I would put the blame on him. And the reality is, my number one favorite trait about myself normally is full accountability. I believe, how many people own their business? Raise your hand. Let me give you one that is just remarkable. Every single problem in your company is 100% your fault. You hired the person you're blaming, and you can fire them. And so, brother, I'm so happy that I can talk in public that I've gone from a 1 out of 10 on this issue to a 5.2. And boy, has my company and my life changed because of it. And I'm excited to hopefully get to a 7 or 8. I don't think I'll ever get to 10 because DNA is a powerful motherfucker. But I could not deliver negative feedback. And I branded it in a book and to my company. Now we call it kind candor. And I don't care enough about money, so I would carry people even though I was losing profit. But I didn't realize I was actually creating fear. And that killed me. Like, it made me feel like my whole life's work was broken. So I've changed that, and it's been huge. Kind candor. And I know a lot of you who raise your hand struggle with this, especially because some people are like your friend from high school, your cousin, somebody that was with you from day one, but I'm telling you, you have to find kind candor. It also is a very good relationship advice. Like, it's real, and it doesn't come natural to me, but it's real. And that's the thing I constantly made the same mistake on. Can machines start to think better than us? We know that to be true. Does that scare the fuck out of people? Yes, but I promise you, if we were lucky enough to all be able to go dig up our great-great-grandmother and revive her through new technology, and she opened up her eyes and calibrated the world we live in for a day, she'd be like, what the fuck is going on? You know, the TV is a new invention. The airplane is a fairly new invention. I'm fascinated by people's inability to understand that innovation and technology will always advance. Like, literally, there are 90-year-olds walking around on Earth that remember life, forget about pre-internet, pre-telephone, but like real, like, you know what I mean? And so, what do I think? I think the human race has proven for a very long time that we will adjust. And do I believe that many people can be affected in the workforce? Of course I do. That's what always happens. The internet changed everything. And AI will do the same.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Cheers. Let me say something real quick. I want to get to the next question. Real quick, just an interlude. Everything we've been talking about, since this is where the convo went, the big takeaway for all of you here is stop being a no person and become a maybe person. The fact that most people here have not spent 10 hours, which is a lot but a little in the scheme of your life. The fact that most people here have not spent 10 hours researching artificial intelligence is a mistake. It's a mistake. Like, forget about like you're gonna retire in 3 years. Like, this is gonna impact your life. If you plan on living, this is real. And like, I don't understand just saying no because one of your friends said something or you read one headline that like, and you become all of a sudden ideological about the workforce. But what really it is you're hanging on to that because you're scared, because you don't get it. You're not good with technology. You need to spend the 10 hours to understand this, because now what will happen is you'll go from full defense to potential offense. Promise, your time, when new things pop off, a couple of hours on Googling, you know, I have bad reading comprehension. Go to YouTube, it's the second biggest search engine, so you can listen to it or watch it. I didn't know what the fuck NFTs was, 10 years ago, but I learned. And I really, especially if you own it, one more time, I apologize, who owns a business? I don't understand. Especially if you're looking to not get completely taken out of business in the next 5 years. Like, something could happen. I spoke at the national, this is insane, 6 months after or maybe a year after I invested in Uber, I was the keynote speaker to the national black car and taxi industry in Washington, D.C. I was in a room of like 5,000 taxi and black cab owners. And you can imagine the profile of this crowd. And I said, Uber, and they laughed. So like, we always think we have a moat when we don't. The only moat is leverage with the customer. Whoever's the closest and provides the most value to a customer wins. So if some cockamanian half-ass canvas or production facility builds a very simple front-facing website that uses AI correctly to allow me to type in 2 sentences and automatically render me at the lowest cost a booth, even though you're in the physical business, I promise you that fucker's gonna be a problem for you. You understand? That's how this world works. So I wanna make sure everyone's locked into this morning, back to, what is it, a Wednesday morning, you came here for a reason. I'm humbled by that. I want you to leave with action and real different strategy and perspective. And so please pay attention to this stuff. I would do the same exact thing I did in 2009. First, I would keep costs down. I started the company in a conference room of another company, so I had no cost because I didn't have money. I believe when you start a company, you need to start from the dirt. When everyone talks about, I need to raise capital, I need to raise capital. I always get scared because I think when we were kids, if you were the kind of kid that got like $5 and then you bought some shit in the store real quick and your grandma would be like, man, that money's burning a hole in your pocket. You know those people? I feel like that's what a lot of founders do when they raise capital. They spend it on dumb shit. So the first thing I would do is keep it humble. And the second thing I would do is what I did with this media company, which is sell things you know. What I knew in 2009 was social media in a world that most people didn't know. If you're asking this question for yourself, you got to ask yourself, what do you know? People start companies around where they think money is versus starting companies around things they like or things they know. The only companies that I get excited about as an investor is if I feel the founder really knows it or really loves it. And you show me somebody who really knows it and loves it, and I'll show you something I'm really interested in. So I think that keep it humble and keep it slow. People want it fast, and then do something that you really know or you really love. I really think that framework puts you in the best position to have a successful company. And then be patient because it takes time. I make those garage sale, yard sale videos because so many people email me and say, Gary, you're talking about investing in Facebook. I got $48. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna start making content for people who have $48 because I know exactly what I did and I know what's going on out there. I believe that most Americans are lucky enough to be in a place where they could go garage selling or thrift store shopping or Goodwill store shopping and spend $30 and make $300, $400 every week. And that really matters for a lot of people, a lot of families. And obviously you're talking about a very incredible find, but for a lot of people, the emails I get, like somebody emailed me actually yesterday, I think, they're going to Disney World. They're paycheck to paycheck family, but the entire family for Christmas is going to Disney World proper too, like nice hotel, good flight. And all of the money happened in the last 5 months, making $7,000 buying $1 items at garage sales and selling them for $30, $40 on eBay, Poshmark, Facebook Marketplace. It's there for people that want to go get it. And it's fun if you like it.
So here's my business question. I've been doing Tech Latino now for 27 years.
Wow.
We have brought the Hispanic community from point A to point from nothing, from not even knowing what Cisco was, to over-indexing on cell phones and getting that broadband experience that they needed and they couldn't. What do we do next as an organization to help our community?
I mean, look, I think there's a lot of ways to think about that. I think similar to the first question, it's what do you feel like is most needed? I believe education is massive. And then the next part is the putting people on. So for example, maybe we can do a business development deal where people that want to either enter marketing technology or switch careers and get into it. I'm a unique entrepreneur where if someone is in Join Tech Latino and they're a lawyer, but they don't want to be. They want to be in like digital marketing. I'm not the kind of guy who's scared to hire someone like that just because it's not on their resume. So I think what's next is going from education to becoming a place that puts people on and start business developing with things that creates opportunity. When I grew up, every single kid in junior high and high school was told that if you do not go to college, you are a monumental failure in society. So a lot of the content I started creating 20 years ago was like, look, college is not for everyone. I'm one of those people. But boy, do I think college and higher ed and advanced, even, the highest levels of ed is exactly right for a lot of people. I genuinely believe that. My big passion is trying to make sure that people are self-aware. To your point, what I love about your question is, look, I believe where higher ed struggles for people that are looking to be in entrepreneurship is similar to the concept of reading about how to exercise versus exercising. And so what do I think you can do in this captive audience? We have to go to the field and do. Entrepreneur classes from your incredible institution to Babson to USC to all these places I've come and spoke, they must require these kids or people that are transitioning into new chapters in their life, they must require them to do. It's very, very hard to get good at swimming without swimming. It's very hard to get good at cooking by watching unlimited content about cooking and reading cooking books. Must cook. And if we're going to advance their entrepreneurship, y'all need to create programs where the entire semester is actually being an entrepreneur.
Love it. One more, Gary.
Hi, Gary. Happy birthday. Thanks for being here. Catherine Johnson. I'm an executive with Storage, Distributed Cloud Storage, and Share of Storage Institute. My question for you is what excites you most about the future of technology and what scares you most about it?
Great question. What scares me is that people are scared of it. We're incredibly good at demonizing technology. What excites me is it's the undefeated advancement of the human race. Everything we are today is based on people innovating in technology. 80% of us were on farms 150 years ago until we started inventing the tractor. So what I'm excited about is it's why the world continues to get better. We sit and listen. There are unlimited problems. Humans are flawed, but we continue to get better and better and better, even though it doesn't feel like that in social and traditional media. So technology is why our life expectancies and all these things. There's so much good about technology. What I fear about it is we're going to over demonize it because it's getting more powerful. And what I mean by that is, of course I understand what AI means. It means it may commoditize something that is special. My entire life is based on my brain power. If everyone takes every video of me and everything I've ever put on the internet and put it into an AI learning bot, my special sauce gets commoditized. I'm not confused. I also know that I can adjust. I believe in the human spirit. And so I'm concerned that we continue to demonize technology to a point where we start to suppress it and manipulate it into something that doesn't have the potential to bring as much value. Ironically, it's similar to the last question. My issue with education is the way that we package and sell it, not the concept of education. There's nothing I believe in more than education. My most emotional, exciting answer in this entire interview was me staying up at night, educating and trying to be educated. So, I think our relationship with technology is, this, we all know this. 15 years ago, all the tech stuff was clapped for and amazing and doing these positive things. Now it feels like it's all bad. AI is going to ruin the world. I'm not naive, but boy, am I practically optimistic. And so a bigger question is, what would you like to teach? Like, what are you trying to accomplish, right? Because I love that you're thinking about them, which is exactly right. But ironically, the best way in the world to be selfless is to be selfish. Meaning, for me, for example, why I'm even on this stage right now and why you know me is I think the world lacks perspective on how much good there is and how much opportunity there is and how much is going well. We are fixated on what's not going well. So I have a passion to talk about those things. And I had a passion to talk about entrepreneurship and wine and lots of stuff, many of things that weren't really popular when I first started talking about them. And so I can give you a lot about what the audience is going to want, but first I want to make sure I understand what you want. What would you want to do? What with the content? What are you trying to accomplish?
I would love to educate them in dope environments. That's what I would like to do. Educate them on the things that I've been learning throughout the years, firearms training or personal defense and how they can protect themselves wherever they go around the world, but making sure I do that in a peaceful place for me and my mental health.
I love that. So the key here is it doesn't matter where you are to do that. I built one of the largest wine shows in the world from New Jersey. And when I did it in 2006, like everybody was like, well, you got to do this in Napa. You have to move to Napa. And I'm like, why? So, are people intrigued by the visualization of where people are? Yes. But it sounds like you're trying to teach people something that's important to many people. And the setting or the backdrop is not very, very, very important to that. It's a component, but you can do that anywhere and anywhere. And I think the question becomes, do you actually know how to do it? Ironically, this is a fake cover, but I announced this today. So I'm launching this next year, right? And it's heavy detail on what I'm gonna tell you right now, which is, it doesn't matter if you're in Sri Lanka, Japan, or Manhattan. If you wanna reach people, you need to make sure you know what time to post, what the first 3 seconds of the video look like, what the thumbnail looks like, how LinkedIn works different than YouTube. You have to understand the distribution and the content that works in it. And then more importantly, the slang, the wording, the copywriting, the skill set of content in social matters a lot more than if you're a travel blogger. There's 1 million travel bloggers that don't get any views, 10 million travel bloggers that don't get any views. How well do you know your content of all the things you've learned, self-defense, all this firearm training? And then how good are you at the craft of putting out the videos, the pictures, and the written words on these 10 social media platforms that dictate society? You can easily use the micro moment of the infatuation of our society to do something clever and silly. What people don't realize is that little clever video on Instagram that only got 90 views, one of those 90 views is someone who's actually considering to hire an attorney, and they actually like the fact that you were a little silly and not buttoned up, and you made them feel more comfortable to reach out to you to work with your law firm or your dentist place or your, people are very linear. They don't realize how big pop culture is and how they can factor into their boring business. I had a gentleman reach out to me who has, literally I used a concrete cement business in one of my analogies in a piece of content. He literally owned a asphalt business. He literally started to make TikToks even though he thought it was the wildest, craziest thing he'd ever heard. And it literally has doubled his business. An asphalt seller, like guy that comes and redoes your driveway, made a couple TikToks, one went decent, another one went viral, and literally, if I recall properly the email, a business that was doing $800,000 a year, servicing a local area, I think he was in Wisconsin, is now doing 2.5 million. The tears were coming through the email. But most people who are listening to this podcast who are in a B2B or like a different kind of business are not thinking how TikTok can work for them.
Right, and pop culture doesn't necessarily mean that you need to have your celebrity endorser.
Correct.
You're playing off of what the conversations that are going on.
It's like being good at a cocktail party, right? Think of this as your social media marketing. You go out tonight and it's a fundraiser of your local PTA or the school or it's the banquet for the high school basketball team. Are you the kind of person that comes to that event and you're enjoyable to talk to and have a circle around you, or are you in the corner by yourself? The reality is being an introvert and not being comfortable in that is incredibly appropriate and awesome. As a business, you'd like to think that you're trying to market and get business. And so to me, there's so much more permission for creativity than people allow themselves. But people continue to wear their suit and tie in their LinkedIn profile. And they don't understand the room is what I also ultimately think. I think you take the most stuffed up person you know. Literally, I want everyone to close their eyes and just think about the most kind of buttoned up, stuffy, rigid person you know. I promise you, if that person goes to Las Vegas right now with their best friends from college for a weekend, they're going to be a different version of themselves than you know them. And I think businesses and brands have more permission to be contextual to the room they're distributing the content in. When I make Facebook content, I'm thinking about parents because I know the demo's going to be older. Those are gonna be different videos that I'm putting into TikTok where I know they're gonna be youngsters. The words and the videos and the slang and everything I say and do is different. Yet I believe most people are just making a video and then pushing them out on these channels and expecting for it to succeed. They think of it as distribution. I think of it as a place you have to be contextual to win the room.
Because it's a conversation.
Before it even gets into a conversation, you can't win when you're a fish out of water. as a communicator, if you don't know the room, you will lose. If you go give a commencement speech to a very conservative college and you sling unlimited liberal propaganda, it won't land with those kids, and vice versa. If you're a Jets fan like I am, and you go to Boston and you shit on the Patriots the whole time, you're gonna lose some people. You've got to know the room. And you're raising capital from a VC firm that is very buttoned up. That's a different presentation to an angel investor who they were all entrepreneurs and they built it themselves. If you do not know the slang, you will be out of place. And so I believe before it becomes a conversation, my friend, if you do not know what the picture and video needs to look like at 3:34 p.m. on a Monday in LinkedIn, which is mainly consumed by people who are at work. Think about all the psychology goes into this. I'm posting different content when I know you're at work than when I'm posting on the weekend and knowing you might be skimming your LinkedIn real quick while you're catching up on work, or you're at your kid's baseball game and you're bored and you're just looking at your LinkedIn. Like, I reverse engineer the psychology of the room, the psychology of the person in the room at the time that they consume the content. That level of thought, besides thinking what the thumbnail looks like, besides thinking what the first 3 seconds of the video has to be to even keep you to consume it, this is a level of science in day trading attention that I believe 99% are not executing on in social, and therein lies the opportunity and the vulnerability. Whether you are a nonprofit, whether you're running for mayor, whether you are running a small business, whether you're the CEO of a big company, a creator, an influencer, everyone is trying to figure out how to create demand.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like everyone's, when I say everyone's selling something, I don't see that as a negative. I mean, everyone's trying to communicate something that matters to them. I think selling is very good when you believe in what you're selling. I think if you're part of a nonprofit curing a disease, that is incredibly good selling. And I also don't begrudge someone who's trying to sell lollipops. I did that in 6th grade. Like, everything's allowed as long as you're doing it the right way. And so I believe that the world of marketing and communication has made a very aggressive turn. And I think people are struggling and wasting money on traditional and digital. I don't think this is a digital versus traditional thing. I think that I know, because I live it every day, you can waste an ungodly amount of money on influencers, on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, on Spotify, just as easily as you can in a newspaper or billboard or radio. Yeah. And so I think the craft of being great at storytelling, running ads, creating content for the modern internet, being prepared for the AR, VR world of the next decade, the framework that makes sense to me is day trading attention. Meaning, whether it's a Super Bowl ad, which I think is underpriced for Fortune 500, or it's a carousel ad on, Instagram or LinkedIn, or it's an emerging influencer on TikTok to make content for your local car wash business or SaaS business that's selling to Fortune 500 companies on LinkedIn. I think the nuances of communication and marketing have become so profoundly challenging that most people are really struggling. And I'm very fortunate to be sitting in the eye of the storm. And I always get most excited when I think I'm writing a book that is going to lead to tens of thousands of emails of thank you. And I've written a couple of those, and I know what they feel like versus the other ones I've written that have less thank yous. I think this one's going to be a big one. I think it's a follow-up to Jab, 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 Right Hook, which was a big book that I wrote in 2013 that said this is how you do content on social media. This one is probably the nerdiest book I've ever written. It's like I'm a little worried that it may not be as commercially successful because it is a little textbooky. On the flip side, that's what might make it very commercially successful. So I definitely pushed myself to go further into like going behind the cloak of like what I do for a living, what we do for a living, why a lot of things work for me. I'm proud of that. What I mean by that is someone said something to me 6 or 7 years ago that really felt nice. It was like, I remember it hit me right in my chest. She didn't know me very well. She hung out in this business meeting and then went out and she said, "You're incredibly intellectually generous." And I was very flattered by that. And I feel like this book is intellectually generous. I feel like I'm writing a book of the secret sauce that makes most of my stuff work. And I'm excited that people are gonna take that baton and be able to build for themselves. You know, I'm fascinated by people's inability to get out of no culture. You know, to put their head in this. I'm fascinated by putting your head in the sand. It's what led me to discovering emotional intelligence. You know, for years I was a public figure speaking of like, here's an opportunity, here's an opportunity, here's an opportunity. I would wonder why people close to me, let alone the general audience, wouldn't act on it. And it led me to realizing that people are insecure or lack self-esteem or really struggle with people's judgment or have these poor relationships with themselves. You know, it's funny, when you speak about rapid response, I think it means someone who lacks fear. You know, because the nature of running fast to something new is potentially scary. You may fail, you may waste your time, you may get burnt. But for me, it's subconscious. It's all I really know.
And that's not a bad thing to waste your time. I mean, you're not really wasting your time.
Well, that's my point. Like, so many of my friends are like, you spent 30 hours digging into that hypothesis. Your time has become so valuable. Why are you doing that? I'm like, because if I'm right once every 45 times, it fully pays for everything else. I think people are incredibly good at academia, but not good at actual life. And so, you know, to your point, I don't see it as waste of times. Things I've learned going down rabbit holes became data points and context to other moments of going down rabbit holes that allowed me to either bail early, pattern recognition, or triple down on an opportunity. And so, you know, I really don't know how a CEO or entrepreneur sees the world in any other way. I feel like that's their responsibility. I'm very empathetic to why a CFO or other executives in business context don't do it. But you know, I think it's funny, the whole framework of this makes me think about comfort, fear, self-esteem, insecurity. Those are the things that pop up in my mind when I hear it.